Hello, everybody. Welcome to the FightFit Podcast. We have got Michelle Reeves on the show today. Michelle is an expert nutritionist who specialises in fight nutrition, and she's my nutritionist, so I'm going to get my ass kicked here today. How are you today?
I'm good, and you?
Yes, I'm very well. I think I've been sticking to my goals pretty well.
I actually think, as we were saying, we do things a little bit differently, or I do some things a little bit differently, and getting you to actually track some of your stuff by photos, and the difference that you've made in the space of 2 weeks has been quite phenomenal. But
yeah, I definitely. I think when I sent you the photos, I was seeing photos of me, like selfies with me with like ice creams and sprinkles and lots of carbs in there as well.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's definitely been a big change for me in terms of the fact that I'm filling up now on a lot more like vegetables, good foods. I've got my smoothie, which is my favourite part of the day, which is, berries and protein powder and oats and everything. Big omelette in the morning. So, yeah, I think just watching what you eat as opposed to and measuring things as opposed to just eating willy-nilly has been the biggest difference for me.
How did you find taking the photos in the first place? Were you surprised by anything?
I found that the fact that it keeps you accountable for what you're eating is quite confronting.
Yeah.
In a way.
Yeah.
Because I think that you often, whether you mean to do it or not, you make excuses for yourself and what you're eating. Oh, I have this. I'm doing this. Oh, but yeah, no, I can't get home. I can't have time to cook today, so I'll just do this. Oh, it's just one day or just one meal, and that sort of stuff just really builds up and escalates over time. And then when you actually put it in front of yourself and you're like, all right, this is what I've eaten today, or this is what I've eaten over the last 2 or 3 days, it's like, where does it all go?
We seem to have this funny little almost turn off button where whatever we think that we're doing versus what we actually are doing is very, very different. It's one of the reasons I get people to start with the
Sorry.
It's one of the reasons I get people to start with the photos in the first place, because it also shows me whether they're going to be accountable, because how many people exactly will get something. Like, I laugh when you sent me that ice cream one because it was a look on your face. It was like, damn, I have to own this. But one of the hardest parts in doing nutrition is actually getting people to be accountable, because we're always scared of judgment and everything else. So I start straight off to say, hey, do all your photos first and let's actually have a look at what you're doing, because usually that is a good process in itself, exactly like what you said. You kind of look at it and go, oh, do I actually want to send that? Do I actually want to admit that I'm eating that? And do I even want to eat it? Because now that I'm looking at it with different eyes, all of a sudden it seems so very, very different. I think for nutrition or lifestyle in general, this is where a lot of people are going wrong, is we have this perception that we're eating really, really well up until they actually start taking photos of stuff. And when you look at it in a much bigger picture, you realise it's not quite what you think it is.
Right.
And also, I find it's a much easier way to get people started as well when I turn around and I go, okay, based on what you're doing, this is actually where we're going to start. And like for you, kind of looking at lifestyle, what you wanted to achieve, all of that kind of stuff, and saying, right, here's some good meals, they're easy meals, and get it in. How have you gone with the amount of food? Because technically now you're eating more food than what you were when you started.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think the main difference is that beforehand, a good day for me, quote unquote, would be not eating much. So it'd be like if I had, my fruit, yogurt and chia seeds in the morning, and then I was able to wait and then have dinner at 5 or 6 o'clock and then not eat for the rest of the day, I was like, okay, yeah, I've eaten really well today. Whereas I've actually probably deprived my body of the nutrition that I probably need in terms of the training regime that I have. So I think the biggest difference has been understanding that just because I'm eating a lot doesn't mean that I'm eating badly.
Yep.
So if I'm having my omelette in the morning, which is stacked with vegetables and egg whites, full of protein and goodness, and then I've got my smoothie, which is, full of fruit and protein powder and that.
Oh, can we talk about fruit? Because one of the things that, we launch into, everybody launches into a diet. They all want to lose weight, and especially now coming into summer. So, of course, there's every 6-week and 8-week and 10-week challenge out there. And most of them are really going to be about deprivation. It's about cutting calories or cutting out certain food groups. And one of my biggest issues is the fact that we have entire industries telling people not to eat fruit because they're going to get fat. And it's one of the first things I generally put back into people's diet. It absolutely blows me away.
I think the common misconception is that it's full of sugar, right? And
Correct.
people think that sugar equals calories equals putting on weight.
The funny thing is, though, is I could get somebody who says, I'm not going to eat a banana or I'm not going to eat a carrot because carrot's got sugar in it. But they will then go and eat sushi, which the rice has got sugar syrup in it anyway, or they'll go out and eat KFC or they'll eat chocolate. They don't have the same measure, but they're too scared because it's been drummed into them that it's the fruit from the sugar that's the problem. And it's so backward, it's so wrong, that's not funny. So as I said, I love putting fruit because people go, well, I can eat that. I can have fruit. And I go, yeah. Have it in a smoothie before bed. I can eat before bed. Yeah. I'm not going to get fat. I promise you there's no fat fairy that comes in overnight just because you've had a smoothie before you go to bed. So it's...
Is it overnight when you're meant to be burning most of your calories?
You're at rest. So, but I have like a lot of, say, shift workers, and the one strategy that helps them sleep is actually giving them high energy carbohydrates, so like making them have a bowl of oats and banana and some honey and then sending them to bed because it actually helps them sleep.
Wow.
So
I would not expect that at all.
Again, like most things...
Oats is something so, like, you get your energy from that in the morning. That seems so backwards to have it at night.
Yeah, and yet it's just a strategy. Unfortunately, I think these days too many things have been sold as a single solution. So if you're going to eat this way, then that's the solution, just to eat that way. If it's this one, then just do this. Whereas for me, and we've had this discussion, for me it's about primary foods, actually getting all whole foods. All foods are there to be eaten. So all your fruits and vegetables, all your lean meats, all your good fats and all good grains and things like that. Everything else, because a lot of people will talk to me about intermittent fasting or keto or all these different ways that have been sold as an idea, whereas to me they're just a strategy. It just becomes a nutritional strategy. So I have some athletes that intermittent fasting works really, really well. It depends on the person's lifestyle. It depends on what they need to achieve.
What is a lifestyle that would accommodate for intermittent fasting?
That does?
Yes.
Sometimes the shift workers, intermittent fasting works really, really well. It depends what they do for a job and how much access or whether they can stop to eat. There's no magic in the amount of food in terms of the amount of meals. So whether somebody's having 2 meals a day or whether they're having 8 meals a day, and I've got all of them, there's no magic in the amount of meals. It still comes down to, at the end of the day, controlling the amount of calories that are in those foods, the food quality, so food source itself, and then timing and strategy outside of that.
Food quality is another really interesting one that we've discussed as well, because that's something that I've never even given a thought to. I probably should have, and a lot of people who are listening probably do give a lot of thought to this. But in terms of where your meat comes from, where your seafood comes from, is it? And we talked about it being like salmon being farmed last week. I find that really interesting, if you don't mind.
Yeah, look, and this is unfortunately, I think, where in terms of when people start dieting or that they've got a goal to reach, that they end up getting caught up in too much, what we would call, the best term I ever heard was nif-naf in some bits and pieces. You always want to try and get your foods sustainably farmed. Obviously fruits and veg and things like that, you know, going to your local grocer or going to markets and things like that. But the fish, a lot of fish is farmed. So you always want to try and get fresh fish, and you always want to try and get deep sea fish as well. Unfortunately, when you're getting stuff that is farmed, it's more likely to be not full of some very nice stuff.
What kind of stuff are we talking?
Just kind of think sometimes you probably want to look further into farmed fish, but just think in terms of natural, what's out in the deep sea and what's naturally feeding on versus something that is farmed, per se. Okay. So food source, but even when I'm talking food quality as well, I'm talking lots of fruits, veg, lean meats, fresh fish, good fats, that kind of stuff as part of that hierarchy when it comes to fat loss.
One thing that I've noticed is that the only thing that I can think of that I've been buying recently, and it's noticeable, that is in a packet is probably like frozen fruit. I'd say that's the only thing that I'm buying that's in a packet.
Yep.
And everything else is I'm pretty much spending all my time in the fresh fruit section or the fresh veggie section or the deli or.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Either. There's totally nothing wrong with getting some frozen stuff, even frozen veggies. You know, a lot of people, same thing. Sometimes depending on how they've been brought up. Some people have been brought up to actually eat lots of different colour veggies, lots of different types. Some people just don't eat vegetables full stop anymore, which is a little bit, to me, that's a little bit scary. Purely from fibre, from vitamins and minerals and your health.
What kind of an effect can that have on you if you are somebody? Because one of my best mates actually has a very unorthodox palate where he just sort of eats meat and carbs, and that's pretty much it. What kind of an effect can that have on you that is immediately noticeable?
There's plenty of people out there. If you get some of probably the old school bodybuilders, they'll tell you exactly that they feel fine and they function really well on just their rice and meat or their potatoes and meat. And good luck to them. For me, and especially, I mean, everyone, it's not just relative to athletes. Everybody should be eating vegetables. You should be getting at least 70% of your day should be coming from vegetables. Think about it in fibre. Think about fibre goes through the system and I always say to people, it's a bit like a garbage truck. It comes through and it collects and gets rid of everything that it needs to. But it's also where you're getting your vitamins, minerals from.
Which help you in terms of cognitively and
just everything. Just think overall health. Just keep it really simple. Just think overall health.
Right.
So
there's many different benefits.
There's literally so many benefits.
Right. And then water, does that have like a sort of a similar relationship?
Funny, I haven't put this blog out yet, but I started writing it. I was being a bit sarcastic when I was writing it because it's one of those things I can get frustrated with. And my point was I started out to say, if I said to you, I have this thing and it's liquid gold, it is going to help you feel better. It's going to help clear up your skin. For those who, too much information, but those who don't go to the toilet properly, it's going to help you go to the toilet properly. It's going to help you in your weight loss journey. I have it and I'm the only one who's got it. How much are you prepared to pay for it if I said to you it's going to do all of those things? And I guarantee it's going to do all of that. Most people will turn around and go, what is it? Because the answer to everything now is supplements, right? Like what supplement, what pill can I get? This just gets rid of this. Forget everything else. Just give me the pill. So in my mind,
make this an infomercial.
Yeah, I have this liquid gold, and it's just so powerful. The answer is it's water. So, and it's the one thing that people take for granted. The amount of people I get through, and they're like, when I get them to track it, and they're on maybe 500 mil, maybe, in a day. So the average is supposed to be around about 1 litre per 20 kilos that somebody weighs. And it is the one people, I can say to someone, okay, get down 2 litres of water, and they're like, oh my God, she's walked away and told me I need to drink water. And then they actually try and go get it down, and they come back to me the next week and go, oh my gosh, it was so hard to get 2 litres of water down, but oh my gosh, my skin is so good. Or I feel better, or I'm not as foggy in the mind.
Yeah. It's funny you say that, because I've been drinking my 4 litres of water every day, and I'm starting to feel like the only way I can describe it is dry brain.
Yeah.
When I don't have it. If I go for the first few hours in the morning and I haven't had my few litres of water, because I'm trying to have 2 litres before I leave the house. If I haven't done that, then I get this weird brain feeling where I feel like there aren't like things aren't happening in my brain.
Yeah, or brain fog. We call it like brain fog.
Yeah. And it's interesting, and something that's one of the first things that I've been able to notice in terms of, because I'd say that my days would vary, but if I was working or if I was out and about, I'd try and probably drink 2 litres a day beforehand. So my water consumption wasn't too bad. But since I've been drinking 4 litres a day, that's been the one thing that I've really noticed. And I wonder if there is like that sort of cognitive effect.
Yeah, well, you're flushing out toxins in the body as well. And the funny thing is, you know, like I said, if I sit down with somebody and I say, listen, and again, I've written it on blogs before to say, you know, everybody knows that they need to eat their vegetables and have some fruit. They know to eat their meat. They know to have fats and they know to have water, but it's not sexy. So it's, what's the next thing? Or give me a 6-week challenge because 6 weeks is going to fix all my problems. Never mind the fact that I've been this weight for the last 5 years, but the 6 weeks challenge is going to fix everything. And like I said, people, they don't want to hear this stuff because it's not sexy to sell that drink your damn water.
Yeah, and like a lifestyle that's,
Stop treating it like it's 6 weeks. 6 weeks is going to fix everything and I'll be happy when, instead of, and you will have heard me say, I get a lot of, you know, families in mums and dads and in couples that they're trying to, they've got, you know, similar goal or whatever. And I always say to them, because they go, what are we going to do about our kids? Do we have to cook separate for them? And I go, just think about that for a second. If you have to cook completely separate and you won't let your kids eat the way you're eating, doesn't that tell you something? Because your kids should be able to, you might tweak it. There's a difference between tweaking it or making something that's completely different and no, you wouldn't let them. Would you go give them all of these pre-made, what are they called, like replacement meals? Would you go give that to your 7-year-old? Because the chances are the answer's no. You'd say, hell no, I'll go make them eat food. Well, go eat food yourself. Same.
So because it can be very difficult. I don't have kids yet, thankfully, and but I can imagine it can be very difficult to make kids eat vegetables. So in terms of that, it'd be a good way to indoctrinate them into the lifestyle of, you know, eating your vegetables, drinking lots of water. But in terms of willpower and, you know, in your lunch boxes, you're not going to have asparagus for the kids.
It's funny, you know, it's what you brought up on though. When I was brought up, you were given your vegetables and you weren't allowed to move until you ate them. Or if you didn't eat them, that you just weren't allowed to have anything else after it. And I've got 3 kids and I've fought with all of them at some stage over food. And there's some that genuine things that they dislike. Mine was always peas. In fact, if I even smell peas or they're cooked with something else, I still won't eat them. I cannot stand them.
I think that's an upside for me as well. I'll eat anything.
Yeah.
I don't care.
We'll see, and which is a good thing, but there's definitely some who just have a real, like, ugh, they're just not going to have it. But I think a lot of it is what you are definitely brought up with. My youngest one, when I was changing my whole lifestyle around, it would be nothing for him to have chicken risotto for breakfast. He wouldn't think, he's 5 now, he wouldn't think twice about having that for breakfast. We all go and have, you know, it's normal for everyone to have cereal or to have toast. Well, it is in Australia, but if you look at a lot of other countries, they don't actually do it that way. They'll have eggs or they'll have meat. A lot of people will go, meat for breakfast, but if you think about it, if you go out to a cafe, you'll have eggs and a bit of bacon and a bit of this and a bit of that and avocado and blah, 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 but we just don't seem to think about doing it when we're at home. It's a cafe thing or an eating out thing. Right. But getting up and my kids having, well, we call it cheesy egg with whatever.
What's cheesy egg?
Cheesy egg is it's literally just scrambled eggs and it's got a bit of cheese in it. And it's funny because same thing I can say to someone, kids, I'll put cheese and blah, blah, blah. They go, you have cheese? And I'm like, oh my gosh, yes, I eat cheese. Like, don't be scared of it. It's totally okay. If you're having half the block, that's completely different.
Yeah,
but, you know.
I love cheese.
Yeah, so do I.
Cheese, so you just make the egg and then you just melt cheese on top of it?
Yeah, or I'll get a bit of like cheddar cheese and just grate it through.
Nice.
And they'll have things like, you know, a bit of mushroom and tomato with it or whatever, and put a bit of toast for them, especially my youngest, because he's a boy and he doesn't stop. He's always on the move. So I make sure he's...
Do you take the yolk out or you leave it?
Hell no.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely stays
for
in.
kids,
yeah. Even for adults, though, there's totally nothing wrong. You think about it. Again, see, there's another demonised thing. How long ago was it that it was in, probably one of the leading newspapers, don't have eggs because it's going to drive your cholesterol up, and, there was this whole scaremonger thing over it.
Everything has cause for cancer or cholesterol these days.
Butter went through it, and then it's all the red meat, and it's just, oh my gosh, I don't think there's a food that hasn't been demonised in some way, shape or form.
I think red meat is and meat in general is the latest to
that's been for a while.
Have you seen that What the Health documentary on Netflix?
No.
It's basically that apparently during the World Food Organization or whatever, they made meat group 1 carcinogenic. Am I saying that right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
So this guy went on like a whole crusade, and an anti-meat crusade, and he's a vegan. You know how vegans are.
There's a really good meme on Facebook. For love nor money, I couldn't post it. And I look after. I actually have quite a few vegan clients, and it's funny because we were talking about. There's quite a few people who seem to have watched Game Changers over the last week, and I reckon I've had about 8 phone calls this week. Oh my gosh, I'm going to go vegan. I'm like, you watched Game Changers, didn't you? They're like, yes. It's another one of the ones on Netflix.
Okay.
The thing is, for me, how I teach people to eat is probably almost 70% coming from that kind of lifestyle anyway, and then it's adding protein to it. But I always try and teach people predominantly plant-based stuff anyway, and everything else is an add-on to that to make sure that they're covering all their bases in terms of nutrition. Like I said, most people would benefit from eating way more plant-based stuff, their vegetables and their fruits, than, what they're doing now. As you said, most people aren't doing it. And even then, when I get people in and go, no, I eat tons of veggies, and then I look at the plate and I'm like, okay, if you say so.
Yeah, right. So a lot of the stuff that I've been eating is much more plant-based.
Yes.
Much more than I would normally. I don't really eat many vegetables normally. A few here and there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it depends if it comes with the meal, I'll eat it. But, with the omelette in the morning, keep going back to my omelette, but I'm a freaking
love
obsessed. It fills up my whole plate.
I saw the picture. It's a big one. It's a good one.
Yeah, and, I put all of my kale slaw from
Woolworths.
I get the peas, corn and carrot, the frozen fruit thing. Put a bunch of that in. Red onion, half a red onion, and then avocado and tomato. Yep. And it's just beautiful.
It's heaven.
But it's just full of vegetables and goodness. And then I've got 5 egg yolks and 2 normal eggs. Yep. Whisk it up.
Perfect.
And then with the lunch as well, it's chicken, sweet potato, only 120 grams of chicken, which is a bit frugal, but with everything else, it's in comparison, it's not, it doesn't dominate half the meal. Yeah. It's more of a balance. I think that's the idea behind it. I think the other thing is too, a lot of people will say to me that they've got a lot of cravings, right? And whether it's going for the chips, the chocolate, the this or that. But the one thing that I do know, the minute I hear that, I know that they've got a lot of nutrients in that, and their day's not full, that their protein's probably missing, and I know that their plates aren't very big. And the other thing, probably not so much for you, but I know that once I get people eating those kind of meals, all of a sudden a lot of their cravings go straight out the window, and they're not picking, and they're actually content. They're full. They're happy. My biggest craving and weakness in life is ice cream. I love ice cream. And that's the thing that I constantly crave, but I've been really motivated the last few weeks with the challenge training and the nutrition that I've been doing and everything, so I haven't really been craving it too much. But on Friday night I did have a few moments of weakness where I went for the lollies. And had a few chips as well. Is it really weakness though? Like, think about it. For me, if we're talking lifestyle,
there's nothing wrong with then sitting down and actually having a bowl of ice cream and enjoying it. Again, when I was a kid, that's ice cream and Milo. That's our generation. It's what you were brought up on, and your fruit and stuff like that. But to sit down, the difference is if somebody actually chooses, like I'll always say to people, if you're going to have ice cream, have the ice cream, but choose it. Don't just go, oh, I'm just giving in, because mindless eating blows out very, very quickly and people tend to keep going. If you actually purposely choose that you're actually going to sit down and you have some ice cream and you feel good about it, because otherwise what tends to happen is people end up with this real deprivation mentality also that goes along with nutrition, because people always think that to start a diet means, oh, I'll start Monday because I'm not ready to cut this out and I need to go and have this and I need to go and get through all the food that's in the house first, because they think that they can't have any of it. And it's not about not having. If you're a social person too and you've got a good palate and you like to try different things, you don't just have to stick to that for the rest of your life. You can definitely, if it's ice cream or if it's a bit of chocolate or whatever. But like I said, the difference is actually picking something, sitting down, eating it, eating slow, enjoying it.
So if I
and then
have
being
a really
done with
good
it.
week of training and nutrition, you won't judge me if I
Hell
have one of the
no.
350 calorie
Yeah.
boxes.
No.
on a Friday night. Maybe Sunday. It depends
No.
when I'm feeling it.
There's never any judgment anyway.
Depends when I choose.
Yeah.
It's my choice.
But that's the thing. Having the power and knowing that you don't actually have to take it out altogether. You totally can.
Rather than seeing it there and sweating and
Yeah.
and then just lunging at it.
Because what happens with people when you say you can't have that? You literally can't get it out of your head and you're going to go and eat it anyway. So I always say, actually plan to have it. So a lot of people, obviously Friday, Saturday night becomes their thing. And I'll always say, okay, because sometimes you'd be careful because it can be a bit of a reward pathway, how people do it. So I will say to people, if it's a Friday or a Saturday night and yep, you're going to sit down and watch a movie, plan what you're going to have and do your normal through the day and make sure that you've still got all of your meals in, because again, if you're eating your normal and then you go and have something like that, you're still much less likely to go stupidly overboard because you've actually got food on board. If people do that prior, they'll just sit there and they'll just keep eating it because they've got taste for it. And they're like in their brain fighting themselves all the way through going, I really should stop. Oh, but I'll just have one more mouthful.
I know that so well.
Right. Oh, but I really do need to
Story of my
stop.
life.
Oh my gosh, put it down. And even better, I'll just go hide it, because apparently we're hiding from ourselves. We'll go hide it in the drawer. So you go hide it in the drawer and then you come back and you're like, okay, even though it's in the drawer, I'll just have one more mouthful. And so it goes. And before you know it, the whole damn thing's gone anyway. And then it's this whole...
you sit in bed staring at the ceiling like, what have I done?
Yeah, what have I done? And that can actually be a trigger for some people to go, oh, well, bugger it. I've done that. Oh, well, I've stuffed it. So now I may as well just keep going.
It's my cheat day. That's what
It's
I
a
tell
cheat
myself.
day. And now I'll start again on Monday. And then they start the cycle all over again.
Right.
So, like I said, better off to actually pick it and go through your week. It's not, and that's why I don't do cheat days, right? There is no cheat day. Food's food. Food either gets you closer to where you want to go or further away to your goals.
Yeah.
You're either looking at it from a health perspective or you're not.
So if you want to take a few steps back, have a cheat day sort of thing.
Yeah, look, it's not even taking a few steps back. And I can say that because I've got, like if I use my fighters, for example, I have those guys during their fight camp. There's one of them in particular who has a Magnum ice cream at least twice a week through his fight camp. Jimmy has chocolate milk.
Jimmy Crute.
Yeah, 3 to 4 times a week through fight camp. So, it's
Big
not...
M?
Yeah, Oaks. He'll tell you he's Oaks. So it's not about... You don't actually have to remove everything. It's just accounting for it, being mindful of it, and that's why I say to these guys, there is no cheat day. I know that they can actually have that milk and there's actually some benefit to it, for argument's sake, post-training, and it's not an issue, and it will actually help keep them on track because there's no deprivation.
So I think that's a really handy thing for me, because if I'm having a really good week, I wouldn't want to plan out having something unhealthy if I wasn't having a good week. But if I am having a good week, then on a Friday or a Saturday or a Sunday night, if I could be like, all right, that's the night where I'm going to sit in bed, I'm going to watch my Netflix, and I'm going to have some ice cream.
Yep. And there's so many good...
It's like a built-up thing that could just be...
Yeah.
Take the air out of it if you just...
And that's where
yourself.
I think restriction and deprivation becomes a really big problem for people. And this is where a lot of people get derailed through their diets because they don't make it part of their life and part of their normal. Like I'll say to someone, they'll text me from a restaurant or they're at a wedding and go, oh my gosh, there's only this on the menu. What do I do? And I go, well, I'll put it to you this way. You're at a wedding, right? Yeah. Hopefully, chances are you won't be reattending that wedding ever again, correct? Yep. So go and make the most of the moment. Have a look at what you've got. Pick the best that you can. Enjoy it. Go and enjoy the moment and just get straight back to your normal tomorrow. Or if you get home, whatever your next meal is going to be, just get straight back to your normal. You haven't derailed. You haven't done anything wrong. It's not bad food or anything like that. Just go do it.
So
enjoy
you're
it.
encouraging people to also enjoy their life and
100%.
enjoy the moments and not stress about every little calorie when you're out and about and at things that you have no control over.
It's so crazy how much pressure that we can put on ourselves, especially like I have two different ways that I'll get people to track. One is just by doing photos and the other's by doing macros. And I use both depending on the person because some people get really, really triggered by having to, like, they have to get that number. And I'm like, yeah, no, you do have to get the number, but calm, if you're farm, it's all good. Yeah. Others I can take it enough by taking their photos and actually just keep rearranging and I might give them certain amounts and targets and things and sizes to actually work for. But even still, the whole idea is to try and remove so much pressure that we put on ourselves. It's like if we talk about scales. Somebody's day can be made or broken just because of that number that's on the scales without any concept. If you could just use scales to measure just fat, you kind of go, oh, okay, maybe it's reasonable if it goes up or down or whatever. But it just so doesn't. It weighs so many things. I use it as part of a metric, but I'll use other metrics like measurements or skin folds and photos because they don't lie. Scales lie, but a lot of people don't remember that. They just see that number and they're like, oh, okay. Without taking into account even not only what do the scales weigh, but all the factors that then actually influence what it weighs as well.
Right. This is something that I've had recently as well, is that my scales at home, like this morning I got up, I was 85.7. 85.7, which I think is good in terms of where I'm slowly sort of getting down and not just losing it
sustainable.
all. Having it sustainable with longevity, right? But then when I come here on a Monday night to FightFit, I have to weigh in, I was 88. But that's because I've eaten 4 meals already before training.
Plus all the water.
Before dinner. And then plus 4 litres of water. So it's like if I do want to get down to the weight that I want to be, like a healthy 82 or maybe even 80, then, you know, how am I going to show that on these scales? That's the issue for me at the moment. So,
and that's where I think, that's why I took the photos at the start, because photos become more important. Although it's a weight-based goal, why that weight? Well, I'd say it to you and I'd say it to everybody. We get a number in our head, we go 80, 82. Why? Because you could actually change your entire body composition and still weigh 85. So in reality, in other words, I'm trying to take the number of the scales away from people. Right. Obviously, for weight-based sport, it's different. That's have to be, it has to be. But outside of that, I was trying to encourage people to use things at their photos, their clothes, things that are tangible, because that will show you the difference. Yeah, so
outside of, you know, boxing, I think it's more about like what I see in the mirror. I've actually had a bit of a journey over the last sort of 4 years in terms of my weight. About 4 years ago, I was 110 kilos, and you know, my days would consist of sleeping until about 3 p.m, maybe working or doing whatever. This was after I finished school for a few years, and then playing PlayStation until about 6 a.m, eating ice cream and Milo and eating toasties with ham and salami and 5 layers of cheese. And I got really big. And, I was like very unproductive until I moved to London, met my boxing coach, who he sometimes watches, so shout out to Ed if he's watching. And then, I met my boxing coach, and he sort of showed me a different lifestyle and, was that sort of, I'd say almost father figure to me, where he sort of showed me how to be healthy and how to take care of myself, how to respect myself a bit more. So, my journey has been quite like fluctuating. So I guess by the time I got to my, I'd say, peak shape in London, I was 79 kilos. Now I'm 87. So I guess that's where the number comes in for me. Like when I was 79 kilos, I felt like I was too skinny. I didn't want to be too skinny. So I feel like 82 for me would be a healthy weight with a little bit more muscle that I feel I've maybe put on over the last year or so through being in the gym here. I'd say that I reckon that would be my healthy weight.
Yeah, and that's fine. As I said, look, everybody's got a bit of a weight range that they might feel they're best in. There's always a point in time sometimes where I try and take people away still from that to say, like if you look at my Instagram page and you look at some of the guys that are on there, they're exactly the same weight and yet they're completely different bodies. So, and they're fighters as well. So again, I mean, we have to be mindful, it's still weight-based sport. But I think if we're talking about you, then you'll obviously feel better. I think, actually that's what I was going to say before. The whole fat loss journey, I try and encourage people to not just look at it about the weight that they're trying to get to, but how they perform, how they function and how they feel every day. Because you could walk into somewhere and say, okay, well, I want to be 82 kilos, and they look at your diet and go, yep, okay, I'm just going to cut this amount of calories out and get you down there, no problem. But if you didn't do it sustainably, if you haven't done it for long term, you're in a sport where performance matters. So you want to do it in a way that is going to benefit all of those. Fat loss, the funny thing is, in one respect, fat loss is somewhat easy. We tend to make it quite hard. Because
I think it's sort of, made it much bigger thing than it really is by all of the diets out there, and this whole rat race to be really skinny. And then I think that actually maybe makes it more difficult for people to have, good healthy bodies, because maybe seeing all those things in the newspapers and on social media and everything makes you feel inadequate.
We are flooded. Like my daughter is 16, she's nearly 17, and I look at her social media, like who she's following and that sort of stuff. And I've had this conversation with her a few times about what's her perception of healthy. I go, show me what is healthy to you. What do you see? Because looking at her social media and even mine, I can open up my phone and I'm like, by the end of it, exactly that. You can go, okay, well, clearly I need to go do something about it, because this is what it looks like. This is what normal, apparently. These are all normal, and now I'm outside the normal, when in actual fact it's quite the opposite way around. We're so influenced by everything that we see, and that's, again, if we talk about people getting not sucked into something, but they look at someone and go, well, I want to look like that, so I'm just going to eat what they're eating with absolutely no idea.
See what The Rock's diet is. Or see what Justin Bieber's diet is.
Yeah. And even for the girls, I mean, there's plenty of top Insta girls at the moment.
Yeah, that's the scary part, isn't it? That the fact that, all of these Insta girls who are, like, with all due respect to them, that's what they're doing with their life. They probably do have a few little not so natural processes going on. I'm by no means an expert in that, but it's not all like what it looks like. It's not all natural. And a lot of these young girls and guys, are aspiring to be this thing that's it's a bit like chasing leprechauns, I think.
Yeah, it's a very not that it's unattainable. I think that a lot of the stuff is very attainable, but like anything, if you want to sustain it and you want to do it for the long term, then be in it for the long term. Stop thinking that everything is just, I've just got to get to it now. Like I said before, if it took you 5 years to get to where you are, stop thinking that 5 weeks is going to be the solution, because it's not. And I always say to people at the start, I'm not your quick fix girl. If you want to just go empty out your calories, you don't need to pay me for that. You can go to someone else for that.
Sure. Right.
But if you want to sleep better, feel better, function better, train harder, feel good, have your mind clear, and be healthy and still get to your goal, then definitely.
I think that's what I'm really looking to get out of this whole process is, first and foremost, is to educate myself about how to have a better relationship with food.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that I really, really want to learn, understand food better, understand my body better, nutrition, and understand how myself I can mechanically function better.
Mm-hmm.
You know, how I can make my body function better, how I can make my mind function better. And it's just that educational learning process is what I'm trying to come into this with really trying to learn. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that.
I think you've done, as I said, I think you've applied the food and you've done very well to start with. It's food essentially itself is easy. Like I said, we all know what we're supposed to eat, but our habits, our lifestyle, our relationship with food, scales, how we see ourselves, all of those things actually then come into play. Probably different for, that's probably more general population. I will always get somebody who's gen pop and they'll look at a fighter and they see them shredded and the weigh-in day and they go, oh my gosh, I'm just never going to look like that. And I go, anybody can look like that. It's just whether they want to do the work. These guys don't take shortcuts, and they do whatever they have to with zero excuses. They're tired, they're working full time. They might, one of my girls was telling me there was she likes the baklava, and she'd driven past her and she sat there for 15 minutes and I was laughing my head off because I'm like, I would have just gone in, I would have caved. But she sat there for 15 minutes having this argument, yes, no, should she go get some? And she actually ended up driving away, but that's because she had a weight-based deadline. So she knew she couldn't move. Like So
she was a fighter, was she?
She was a fighter. So she didn't have the flexibility at that point in time. I think she was like 3 weeks out from fight.
Still commitment though, hey?
110% discipline and commitment. Like I said, if that was me, I would have just got out the car and gone and had it.
See you later. There.
But the reality is anybody can get to anywhere. They just got to know why they're doing it. And like you, so you have a deadline. Fighters, they have a deadline. They know, they're very clear on their why. They know if they don't get there, then they can't fight. So they don't derail and they stay on it and they do everything. Like I said, you can still be flexible along that pathway as long as you're doing everything else right. And the same goes for general population. A lot of people think that they need to go jump on board for all these challenges and it's going to fix them. They don't need to be fixed.
Right.
They need to improve their relationship with food. They need to get, change the food sources, stop eating so much takeaway and stuff like that.
Yeah. And also another area is performance, which that's probably been the last few days. So I'd say, have I been on this for 2 weeks now, right? I've been on this
second
for 2
week,
weeks. Yeah. And one of the things that I was really, really, like when I had my first consultation with you, I was like, all right, I really want to improve my performance. I don't want to, not know whether today is going to be a good day or a bad day in terms of performance. I want to have that sort of structure where I can get to 7 p.m, where I do my training and I know that I've done all the necessary steps and, physically as well as mentally. That's it. If I know that I've done the steps, then I'll get to training and I'll feel more up for it. And, I was telling you that on Monday night we had to do 400 burpees.
It's insane.
100, go back, then someone took a drink when they weren't meant to, then 100, then, someone answered back the coach, then another 100. And Paul Farfield doesn't mess around. But, we were going to do those 400 burpees, whether or not people answered back. I think hopefully he doesn't listen to this and then make us do more. But so that's just the conditioning, the level of conditioning that he's trying to put us through to get us ready for that fight. But I kept up with it and I did every single one with Paul because he does them with us. And I was literally internally fist pumping, and I was like, yes, you know,
Yep.
I can't believe I just kept up with him. And then, you know, in between all the rounds, I'm more on my toes, and I just feel a lot more energetic throughout the session, and I feel like I'm a lot more up to it. And it's only the second week of training, but I feel like by the end of it, if I do everything right in terms of nutrition, in terms of sleep, in terms of drinking all my water, then I feel like I'll be really, really ready for it, which is a great feeling.
So how bizarre is it? And you know, if you think about people, if they really think about this, how bizarre is it to think you actually eat more, you have been able to increase your performance, feel better, and your weight's come down? Because that's the thing that most people, even when I'm saying to them, okay, you actually need to eat more, and they're like, you're going to make me fat. And I go, I'm not going to make you fat, I promise. Eat more. And people go,
Just surrender.
it's like a complete oxymoron to eat more, but you end up weighing less, or your weight actually comes down. So same thing for you. You've eaten more, you've increased your performance, but we know your weight's already come down.
And I've certainly been a bit sort of tentative about eating a lot. Like when I do get home after training and I haven't had my rice for the day, and I put my rice and my salmon and then all my veggies and everything, it's literally a massive plate of food. And last night I told you I couldn't eat my rice because it's just there was just too much, and that is a fantastic problem for me to have.
Yeah.
But as you said, my weight has gone. When I first sent you the photo, I was 88.7. Now I'm 85.7, and I've been eating more, substantially more than I would normally eat. So yeah, that's been. Yeah.
It's as you say, it's a nice problem to have. I've had a few of the guys that have come through. I won't say what challenge they're doing, but let's say a very, very well-known challenge, and they've decided to not follow the
Wimp to Warrior.
No. Wimp to Warrior is their nutrition program is amazing because they've got George Lockhart's system as part of Wimp to Warrior. So no, they're fine. But I do look after a couple of the Wimp to Warrior guys. But so there's a stock standard. I think the guys might be on 1,500 calories, and the women are probably 1,200, something like that. And I've looked after a couple of guys. So the guys have gone right through the challenge at the same time, and we've got to the end, and my guys have ended up losing more weight. They've eaten more food. They've been able to increase their intensity, because this is what a lot of people fail to realise. You start stripping stuff out, eventually your energy expenditure is going to go down because you've got nothing in the tank to be able to do it anyway. So it's a bit of a trade-off there. My guys, if they're eating more, they can increase their intensity, which is going to help them in their journey anyway. But one of the guys in particular said to me, goes, at the end, he actually lost the most amount of weight. He said, but the amount of people who felt flat and tired, they just wanted the challenge to be over, and then they were going to go out and go binge or go have all the foods that they've just missed out on. By the time they started the next challenge, he said half the people had already put half of the weight back on and were climbing and then freaking out going, we need the challenge to start again because they need this weight to come off. And people perpetually get stuck in this.
If I can interject there, I did this same challenge last year, but on my own accord in terms of nutrition and everything. So I was kind of winging it, and I was working full-time as well, starting at 7 a.m. in the city, and I was absolutely knackered most days for work. And then at night time during training, I was doing okay, but certainly not as well as I could have been. Throughout the 8-week challenge, I got really sick twice, where I was like, really quite sick. And then by the end of it, I'd lost a bit. Like I'd lost about 4 kilos in the 8 weeks. So it wasn't too bad. But then I put it all back on. Not all of it. I was 91 when I started back then, and this time I was 88 when I started. So not all of it, but what you were saying before, that definitely applies to me and how I was last time as compared to this time.
Scary with, as I say, there are some. Unfortunately, the term of the challenge has probably been overused, because there are some really good, put together, well thought out programs and well put together nutrition for people. But unfortunately, on the flip side, like everything, there are those out there that are doing it like the way that I've said it. I was going to say the other side, I've seen it happen as well where, again, driven by scales, because people get so obsessed about they're going to hit this number, because a lot of the challenge, you're going to lose 5 kilos in 5 weeks or 5 kilos in 8 weeks. So people get in this thing in their head that the whole competition is driven around the fact that they've got to see this number, because if they drop that 5 kilos, they've won, irrespective of now what they look like as a result of it. And I've seen it. I never forget one lady I looked at, and she'd done back-to-back challenges. I think she'd done like 3 or 4 of them, and she'd lost, I don't know, equivalent of about maybe 20, 25 kilos. But everything just looked like it dropped. She'd lost all her muscle mass. She'd lost, obviously, the fat mass, but she'd lost a hell of a lot of muscle mass to go along with it. So everything had dropped. All her skin had dropped. Everything from her arms, her legs, everything was just drooping. But hey, she won because she got number on the scales.
Right. So you're fully endorsing how you feel and how you look and how and all of that.
It's got to be all of it.
Yeah.
Anybody, like I said, anybody can get you to a weight. Anyone can do that. But to not sacrifice your health, so your immune system, to not sacrifice your performance while you're doing it, and all the rest of it, and still get you to where you need to go, that's different.
Right.
So you could walk into any gym or go and see somebody who's just gone and won a card, like a bodybuilding show, and they'll just replicate their diet. I've had people come in and they've been, 5 almonds and 2 boiled eggs for a snack and a couple of pieces of celery, and now I'm only allowed to have boiled chicken. Of course you're going to lose weight on that, but you're going to lose your brain function along with it. So, like I said, anybody can go pick up. You don't need to pay someone for that. Anyone can go do that.
Right.
But if you want to do everything else, that's different.
Awesome. Well, we have been going for nearly an hour now. I know you've got a chock-a-block day today. First of all, I'd like to say thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it, and I really appreciate all the amazing advice you're giving to me. I think that our listeners will get a great deal from it. Do you want to maybe tell everybody where they can find you on social media and all of that?
Yep, okay, and thank you for having me as well. So on Instagram, it's just michellereeves.com.au, and exactly the same for my website. It's under exactly the same name. Facebook is a little bit of a tricky one because it's an old name and it won't let me change it. It's just under LifeTrack PT. It's LAFETRAKPT.com. And it comes up with my name. It'll come up with Michelle Reeves.
Sure.
There.
If any of you guys, follow me as well, I often post about Michelle. I've got a whole highlights folder on my Instagram of all the food that I've been having, if you want to check that out. We've been talking a lot about fighters, but Michelle also does everyday people. So anybody who wants to get in touch, please do so.
Cool. Thank you.
Best of the best. Thank you very much for listening, guys. Thank you.